Yes, it's so sad to see these happy, pretty pictures of her, and they're all over Facebook because her husband, Omar, liked to post pictures on Facebook, and then there are other family members who still have some photos that are public.
And so this is Hadeel Hikmat, and she came from Iraq. And Judy, hit me if I'm getting any of this wrong, but you know, this picture right here, the reason I put it up here, the first one, let me look at her. I mean, she's with the guy that's her husband. She's wearing a head covering that reflects the American flag, and she's happy. And you know, she came here because she thought she could lead a better life. She could build a family here. She wanted to do well, and the kind of person that when our country is operating like it should, these are the kind of people who make it like that. And somebody took that away from her and left her body in Jordan Lake, and she was left unidentified for basically a week, which is inconceivable to me. And just, I'm sorry, I'm a little mad about this right now. It's quite, you can see this police sketch there. Judy, I'll let you talk maybe some of the facts of this because you did a great stream on this whole case. So I don't want to rage out and monopolize away from you.
Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, so Omar, well, I don't know if I should say all this stuff, but whatever. I mean, a lot of times I do live streams and I think, oh, nobody's going to watch it anyway, so I'll just say whatever. But then it turns out that thousands of people watch it. But yeah. Anyway, I actually vaguely knew one of Omar's siblings many, many years ago when I tutored the sibling for the LSAT, which is a test that you have to take to go to law school. So from what I recall, it was really just their mom, Nita, who is a successful dentist who was an immigrant from Iraq, I think, although she might have gone through Turkey or some other country. And the father is, I don't know how to say it, but he's just some plain old white guy whose like parents are or ancestors might have come from Eastern Europe. So it wasn't like a totally immigrant family, just to be nitpicky about it. So the family had 4 children. Omar was either the oldest or the second oldest child. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like he really launched much of a career because after he graduated from UNC Greensboro, he wound up working in the lawn care section of Home Depot. So even on Facebook, he was kind of griping about it and saying that it was too physically exhausting. Even though he liked his job, he wanted to move on because it was tough on his body to be working at Home Depot. So this is probably like a Home Depot that I've been to, you know, down towards Apex, because my old office was actually really close to where their townhome was. So who knows, maybe I passed by Omar in Home Depot. So from what I pieced together, thanks to Facebook and social media and stuff, it looks like Omar got some sort of online teaching degree, like a master's degree from Grand Canyon University. And he wanted to become a substitute teacher or work as a librarian, which I don't think it really pays that much more than working at Home Depot. I mean, what do you think?
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like his poor wife ended up coming over here and she was the one supporting him. I mean, he did work part-time from what it looks like. But so why is it that this woman who just came here from Iraq last year is supporting the family? That just sounds really messed up, in my opinion. So she was a chemical engineer before she moved here. It sounds like they got married overseas, maybe in Turkey or Iraq or something. And then after a couple of years or so last year, she finally moved here to live with him, probably in fall of 2022. And then, you know, unfortunately, something happened where a boater found her body floating at Lake Jordan at the end of August. So this just happened.
And you can see this picture here I got from one of the news stations around here. They created a sketch pretty quickly of her that looks a lot like her. And so how does your wife go missing? And the next day, a body is found in the lake. And within a couple of days, a sketch is put up that looks like her. And she goes unidentified for a week. That doesn't look good to me.
Yeah, from what I heard, it sounded like her brother had to come from Turkey to identify her body. So it's like, isn't her husband like right here as well as her in-laws? They're all living around Wake County, Raleigh. It's very bizarre. It seems very suspicious. So, that's why, as far as I know, the husband probably is the main suspect. So her brother has been very outspoken in this case, which is great, because who's going to really advocate for her if the husband is staying silent and whoever else might have known her? I haven't heard anything else. It's just her brother, who's been in the media speaking in English, talking about how Omar and Hadeel had marital problems for a while. They were fighting all the time. She wanted to have kids, but apparently there were some, maybe some dysfunction issues, fertility problems, and he wasn't very supportive and was griping to her about why she had to keep talking to her family members and still keep in touch with them. He seems very controlling.
Well, and the police, of course, have executed some search warrants, and the two that we know about were at properties associated with the in-law family, which makes sense because one of those, I think, is where she lived, and the other one is a place that she visited. But I do have on here that they've got an attorney, the family does, who says they're going through a grieving process, and they say they're cooperating with law enforcement, and I think that's fine. But the husband's Facebook is still active. He has posts on it, nothing recently, and nothing about his wife who went missing, and nothing that I saw, and nothing about his wife who is now dead. And okay, get a lawyer and make a statement. I understand trying to navigate the system, but it just seems to me that she was at the time she was murdered, she was. It's like, let's just say she doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, does that.
Yeah, and I've heard of the family's attorney before. I don't know if you have, since we're all practicing in Wake County. And I always thought she did more immigration cases as opposed to criminal defense.
Yeah, and I do see that. I think her firm at least mentions criminal defense there, but it seems to have an immigration focus. And it's fine if it's an attorney they already knew, maybe even helped her come over here or something like that. There's nothing wrong with the attorney's statement, and not inappropriate to have an attorney help you if because your homes have been searched and things. That is all fine. I think. I just think it's terrible that she was left unidentified for a week. Okay, and her family's local, and they knew she was gone, and that's pretty much all that has happened is this attorney's statement. It really, really suggests things to me.
Yeah. Well, I also don't think the attorney actually said the family was cooperating with the police. She just gave some general feel-good statement, like the family's grieving, and that's all we want to say now. We trust the process, something to that effect. Yeah, because I don't think he was cooperating at all. That's why they had to do those search warrants and, seize people's phones and laptops and the vehicles. So also what I found interesting was that somehow Hadeel's brother quickly saw my YouTube video. That's always a surprise. I don't know how he found it, but he has left some really interesting comments mentioning that Omar's mother had allegedly told him, as well as his sister, different stories about what happened to Hadeel. So this is all allegedly, of course, because nobody's been charged or arrested. But supposedly the mother-in-law, who is the dentist here, had just suddenly called up Firas, who is the brother, in the middle of the night and said, "Hey, where's Hadeel? We don't know what happened to her." Omar said that they got in a fight and she spat on him, and that she got in a car with 3 other people and drove off. So the brother was like, "What? How would I know where my sister is? I'm all the way out here in Turkey." And he didn't think that sounded like a rational story either. I mean, does she have a habit of just like running off after a fight with some strangers? She just showed up here last year. How many friends could she possibly have? So then the younger sister of Hadeel, who's in Iraq, called this mother-in-law to see what's going on. And mother-in-law tells a different story and says that something about how Hadeel and Omar had gone out to dinner or something. I'm not really clear on that, but it does sound like they were at least 2 or 3 different stories that the mother-in-law gave to Hadeel's siblings. So, of course, the brother, Firas, called the police and the sheriff's office and tried to get them to do something. So they went out and talked to Omar's in-laws, or at least the mother-in-law, in the middle of the night, which is great. I'm like, wow, they're very responsive. And at which point the mother-in-law allegedly became enraged and called back Hadeel's sister and started raging and saying, hey, your bastard brother called the police. Why'd he do that? Does that sound like innocent people?
No, it doesn't. And it's possible that the stories that she was telling, they were being fed to her, and maybe she was trying to figure out, well, why would this happen? But if it's true that she reacted that way to the police being called, yeah, I agree. That doesn't sound like the appropriate reaction when someone is missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where she is. Why would you be angry that the police are called trying to figure out the well-being of this person who is in your family?
Yeah. Instead, so she blew up at her brother and immediately cut off connection with him. No more WhatsApp connection or whatever else. I also noticed that she has no Facebook profile picture or anything that's public now.
Well, I will say before I switch to the next slide that Judy mentioned to the brother on her channel in the comments that, be good to contact a local attorney here to help navigate the process. And I chimed in a little bit in support of that because I think that is a good idea. And the people she mentioned, I'm sure, will be very willing to help. Everybody who looks at this is going to understand that this woman didn't have the resources she needed. And what happened to her is a tragedy. And her family are worth supporting. Her brother said, listen, we believe in the U.S. We believe in the U.S. Constitution. We want justice. And, that resonates with me. And I think it will with anybody that they need to contact to help them. Yeah.
So I'm sure that's what has been said, is that there's still a very active investigation. So all those things need to be tested, the forensic science needs to be done.
And so here we got on the slide here, which is the phone number for the sheriff's department who's handling this. And it's 919-542-2911.
Oh, it's 2811. I wrote it.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, 2811.
Now, I didn't write this, so listen to what Judy's saying, but maybe if you don't get what you want, try this one too, because maybe there's more than one. I actually clipped this. True. I clipped this from somewhere. So it could be either or both of those. It could be 542-2811, which it probably is. And maybe there's also a 2911. But you can also Google it. I didn't put it on here because this is just a slide. But if you go to the Chatham County, North Carolina Sheriff's Department website, they have an electronic ability to submit a tip to or call in case somebody around here knows anything about what was going on before this murder occurred or after it. But you know what? You can call the Raleigh Police Department, Apex. They're all working on the case, but Chatham has it because of where it was located. And if anybody can bring any information to this, I hope they do. These cases can be difficult to actually solve, even if you ultimately think you have an idea of what happened, because sometimes the people involved in it had reasons to be around with each other, and sometimes the evidence is thin. But I'm hoping that the police will be able to bring this together. She left where she was based on the promise of coming somewhere better with someone who loved her, to build a family, and somebody took that away from her and took it away from her family and took it away from our community where Judy and I live. To have somebody like that here, it's the kind of person who makes this place better, and it's just wrong in every way.
Yeah, and since she worked at Walmart, I'm thinking maybe she got sort of to be friends with some of her coworkers, so the police probably have talked with her coworkers also. Yeah, but there seems to be this overarching theme based on what her brother has said, that there was a lot of tension between her and her husband right before she is found dead in Lake Jordan.
Well, law enforcement is going to be motivated to solve this for all the reasons that we're talking about. And if anybody can help them do it, and no judgment on who was involved in it, because we don't know. So anything anybody does know about her could be helpful to the police. So if anybody sees it, and I want her brother to know too, in case he happens upon this video, that we all do care about this. And if there's some way we can support them, we certainly will, including encouraging anybody who has information that helps put somebody in the picture, out of the picture, or whatever, to contact authorities with it, because they want to figure out the truth of what happened.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mentioned this in my live stream, but as a family lawyer who is trying to really push collaborative divorce nowadays, this is just really saddening because they didn't even have any children together. What was there really to, I mean, he could have just let her leave. So I don't know what exactly, maybe she was threatening to take all his money or something, but it sounds like he didn't have any money anyway. So why do you need, I mean, if this happened, why would anyone need to resort to murder when there's some sort of marital problem? When divorce is always an option, there are ways that you can try to reach a resolution, but that also requires that people be rational and reasonable and not want to kill people.
well, and yeah. And there's nothing this woman was involved in or could have been involved in that would have made what happened to her in any way justified at all. So, I mean, it's not like she was in some super conflict where if you didn't kill her, she was going to rat you out for this. I mean, it is irrational. It certainly was just an absolute waste. It really, really is. It's just sad. Sometimes you see people that are murdered and you think the person who did the murdering really didn't even get anything out of doing that. Like they didn't steal even a car or $1 million or whatever. Not that justifies it, but it's like there was nothing to warrant this. Nothing. And she was left in the lake and then left unidentified for a week. Okay. With her in-law family here. Why? I don't know. Maybe they'll answer all that and maybe they won't. That's their choice. But I just hope the police figure out who did it, how they did it, and put that person behind bars. That's all that can be done now. At least that would be a demonstration to her family around the world that people here did care and her life was worth something to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to sort of balance things out a little bit, of course, I do feel sorry for the Drabick family. Not sure if my former student is ever going to see this video or something, but I do wish her well. I hope, I don't think she had anything to do with it. It's just horrible for this family where the mother was very well known in the community, especially being a leader in different dental organizations. It looks like she was also the founder of a free clinic in Cary that gives free medical and dental care to people without insurance. A lot of them are immigrants. And it's still, as far as I know, I think the clinic is still going. They're open on Sunday afternoons. And they also helped with something called like Smiles. I can't remember what that's called, Operation Smiles or something, giving free dental care to people in need. So, I mean, this is just really sad that it has cast a bad light on the family. So, if they had nothing to do with this, I know there's another family member who is a dentist somewhere else, and it's just sad that they have to now be associated with this homicide.
Well, and it's a good point because, the police have been there, and I think the daughter in some report I saw said that they had their guns out and stuff and they were executing the search warrant. There are members of that family who probably are like, what has happened and what happened to Hadeel? And then they're being subject to search warrants. And it's a trauma for them too. And it may be that they're all additional victims in this. It may be that not all of them are, but certainly some of them likely are too. So I don't want to cast too much negativity on her, on that family, the in-law family, because we don't know all the circumstances. But I just hope, like you do, that the truth gets out there, that the police figure it out, whether it was strangers, whether it was somebody in the family, whether it was some other circumstance. Figure out the truth and be able to report it back to her family, and the appropriate result came out. The police are pretty insistent this was a homicide, this was a murder. So I'm taking that at face value, and so therefore I want to see somebody behind some prison bars at some point.
Thanks for covering this, Steve.
Yeah. And so for our last slide, I got up on here so we don't have to end on all just murders, is from the pole vault, which is hearsay. Yesterday, I put this hypothetical out that if somebody's on a retrial and the district attorney says, I don't want to make people come in again, I'll just show the video from the first trial. Is that hearsay or not? It is hearsay. It is hearsay. Look at the definition of hearsay. If you're making a statement other than made by the person who's testifying at the trial or hearing, it's hearsay unless it's defined out or an exception. So hearsay is it's a simple definition, but it is a complicated concept to really grasp. And so you can't just bring in videos of people testifying in other trials and play it in the new one unless you have an exception. And if the other witnesses are available to come testify, then you can't come under the exception of declarant not available. So they would need to come in and testify. But look at this. I put it up here only because it's split 50-50. So 50% thought you can allow this in, 50 didn't. And to me, it shows that this whole thing about hearsay is hard to grasp how the legal system deals with that in the case of a trial. But there's almost anything you're saying, if you're not saying it in court based on your own present declaration, is hearsay. But there are lots of exceptions and lots of things that are defined out of it. It's a complicated topic, but I've been putting up hypotheticals to see where people trip up on it, and that's one. Just because you testified in court at some prior hearing doesn't mean that can just float into any trial down the line. That's hearsay, and unless for some reason it comes under an exception, like you died and the person had the chance to cross-examine you, then you might be able to bring it in under declarant not available exception and stuff like that. So anyway, I just want to finish with something that isn't a murder.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Yeah, I really like the educational component of your case. You sound like a great CLE presenter or law professor telling everybody about the law. And of course, these like hearsay exceptions, the laws could be slightly different from state to state. And as far as I know, this could be admissible in the civil context, but I'm not sure about North Carolina criminal law here, but it could be that it's okay in the civil context, but not in the criminal context. So, that's why there are so many nuances here.
But the basic principle, if you're thinking about it, I think is good to think about, is the law favors live testimony, live witnesses that come to court and tell what they know. And if you can't do that, then you need to have some exceptions for that. And it is possible. There are lots of exceptions. And then also, if you're on the stand and you say, well, this other person told me that, that's hearsay on its face, but there can be lots of exceptions for why you might be able to say it. So it's a complicated topic, that's for sure. A lot of lawyers struggle with it. And since I don't really go to trial anymore, I have to sit there and think about it sometimes for a minute to think, is this an exception or not? And then just because it might be, like you say, in North Carolina, it doesn't mean it's the same in South Carolina or Florida or Michigan or whatever. Every state has its own way it presents the law and their own rules and all that. So it's not easy to have your head around all of it. That's for sure. So Judy, what do you want to tell us before we head off to the weekend? Anything you got coming up on your channel that we should look out for, or anything exciting? Yeah,
well, I'm still doing a lot of things about this whole Dan Markel murder case. It's kind of personal to me because I also came from a relationship where I was involved in the legal education community. Since Dan was a law professor, my ex is also a law professor, and we had to move just like Wendy because of his job. So, and then we also got divorced, separated, divorced the same year, had a child the same year. So I also happen to be like 1 or 2 degrees of separation from Dan Markel. So that's why personally, I really feel like covering the case a lot, but I do realize, there's a limit as to what you can do about just one case. So try to cover some other cases. So I'm really glad to have met you through YouTube. It's kind of funny that I've been practicing here for 22 years, and I've never even met or heard of you. So it shows how big our community is here.
It is big. And when I came to Raleigh, I think I mentioned it to you offline, but I was a general counsel. So it's not like I was floating over to the courthouse very often, only if I had friends who needed people sued and things like that, which is all I do now. So, but it's a big bar here. That's for sure. Yeah. And I'm a recluse, man. I like being out here. It only looks like I like being around people. There's books and stuff, but I'm a country person. I'm a recluse.
Okay, great. Yeah, so YouTube is like our outlet to reach out to people, and then we can just hide in our own house and do what we need to do.
If you go on the trails and things around here, you might run into me, but if it's a mall or something, it'd be highly unlikely.
Yeah, great. Well, hopefully if we can meet up in person someday, I'll let you know when I'm in Raleigh or wherever. So my office is in Cary, close to the Bar Center.
Well, and of course, if people are watching this who are local, take take notice of what we said that Judy does at the beginning of the stream, because if you ever find yourself in need of that, or friends, she's obviously extremely intelligent, but beyond that, I think her approach to how she's handling her cases is really laudable, and the way it should be done. That's my opinion. But I appreciate Judy coming on and telling us about these cases, and that's just touching on the intricacies of especially the Markel case, which she has a lot of streams with many of the people who are involved in the case and stuff. So you want to know more about it as this case is coming to trial, there's your resource. And I'm sure also if anything happens in the case important, she'll be the place to find it. But I hope everybody has a good weekend. I'm sorry, because Judy and I were talking, we didn't catch all the comments about Scotland. I'm going to try and review that later. And I know my wife will tell me about a lot of this too. I saw something about passport in there, so maybe we're doing a trip or whatever. But I really hope everybody has a great weekend. And Judy, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And then we'll launch this outro.